Okay, my topic is the identification of several sieves of Schuchat paper dated in the 1730s. At first, I will make an introduction to papermaking and papermaker Johann Gottlob Schuchat. Schuchat was the papermaker and owner of the Dresden paper mill from 1717 until 1739. After he became insolvent, he switched over to Lößnitz. At the paper mill in Dresden, he produced solid paper of good quality that musicians and composers like Zelenka and his contemporaries used regularly. To brand his paper, Schuchat designed a variety of watermark motifs. From 1725 until 1739, he applied the watermark crowned coat of arms of Electoral Saxony in cartouche, parted per pale with electoral swords and kranzlin beneath Dresden J.G. Schuchat. The watermark received the signet WDL002 in order to be distinguishable from other watermarks with the same motif. The signet originates from a number of projects at SLUB. W means watermark, DL means the RISM signet, and randomly allocated number. Within that huge corpus of watermark variations of the same motif at first sight, I was able to select individual sieves the paper was made of. During the lifetime of Zelenka, good paper was precious and rare, so it was mostly utilized within a very short time period after its production. The sieves for hand paper making were in use only 1 or 2 years. After that time, they were damaged and eliminated. These facts give us a good indication to date the paper more precisely. To differentiate between the watermarks and that huge corpus of variations, I decided to number the individual sieves I was able to identify. These numbers are random and they shall only serve as a distinctive feature. Every number has subdivisions like A, B, C, and so on, where the watermarks are only differing in nuances. These nuances are so very small that it is a question of so-called sieve pairs. That means sieves that were used simultaneously at hand paper making. If you identify the sieve pairs, you can be sure they were used at the same time. In addition, the paper made of the sieve pair sewed together as a pile of paper. The reason is the working process of hand paper making. It was running on a rotating basis. For example, paper of sieve 8 alternating with paper of sieve B. There are always sieve pairs. The next images you will see I took with a thermographic camera. I drew the lines of the writing J.G. Schuchat because that shows the most prominent differences between paper and watermarks from different sieves. Watermark WDL002 and my so-called sieve 8. Sieve 8 consists of 4 different sieves, which have to be 2 sieve pairs. Sieve pair 1 includes sieve 8A and sieve 8B. Sieve pair 2 includes sieve 8C and 8D. Both pairs appear at the same time at first. Both pairs appear the same at first sight, but differ in small details, which I circled in red. 8A and 8B, and then 8C and 8D. I found 12 different manuscripts, including paper of sieve 8. 3 of these manuscripts are dating exactly at 1735, 1736. Now we have the chance to date the paper of the other manuscripts in my chart more precisely. Remember that sieves for hand paper making were only in use 1 or 2 years. Example 1 is the copy of Caldara's Missa in A major that Wolfgang Horn dated at around 1730. There is no score passed on, but parts. I found out that Fagotto 1 is written on paper that was made with sieve 8C. For this Fagotto 1, I would change the dating to around 1735, because of the manuscripts on that paper dating around 1735 already. Maybe Fagotto 1 written and inserted later because the first copy was damaged or lost. Example 2 is the copy of Brown's Concerto in D minor with an assumed dating from 1735 until 1750. Here I found paper made with sieve 8C and 8D. Very interesting is the perished sieve 8C on folio 2. Here we find the evidence that this sieve was in use for some time already, because of the damage which happens during the daily sieve cleaning process with a hard brush. Therefore, I would date this paper and that concerto copy at around 1736 or 1737. Conclusion. There are closely dated manuscripts consisting of paper made with sieve 8C already. That means we are able to date undated manuscripts consisting of exactly the same paper properly. Sometimes there are exceptions, of course. Nevertheless, watermark studies are a complementary science. You should always use as many methods as possible for the examination. Watermark WDL 514 and my so-called sieve 20. Sieve 20 presents the same motif as WDL 002, but with some noticeable differences. It is made between the racks, not on the rack. Other differences are the large orb at the electoral head, the different scribe of J.G. Schuchert, and the wrong arrangement of swords and kranzlin. It seems like a rare watermark, only produced and utilized in the 1730s. I only found 5 manuscripts with that paper yet. 2 of them closely dated 1735, 1736 and 1736 until 1739. Overall, there seems only one sieve pair consisting of sieve 20A and 20B. I found a similar watermark in a manuscript in Berlin, but the watermark differs a bit from sieve 20. I called it sieve 21, because at first sight it looks like sieve 20. However, there are clearly differences. Because there are no known watermarks of WDL 514 with the right arrangement of swords and kranzlin, I would suggest it was a one-time production of that paper with only a few sieves used until the elimination. And now there's an example for sieve 20, it's Zelenka. Zelenka wrote the Missa Purificationis in 1733 for the birth of Maria Josepha's son. Only the Gloria part came to us as a copy, the rest of the Mass written of Zelenka himself. Nobody knows why the autographic Gloria is lost. Only the Gloria part consists of paper made by sieve 20, and I found the sieve pair in that manuscript. Maybe we will never find out why and how the Gloria was lost, but there's a chance to find out when it was written and inserted. There comes the watermark. My thesis is that the paper of sieve 20 and the Gloria written on it dates around 1735, 1736. There are plenty of arguments to support that. First, the already dated paper with watermark WDL 514 around that time. Second, the renewed privilege to collect rags that Friedrich August II gave papermaker Schuchat in February 1735. I'm not sure about the meaning of that, but maybe Schuchat received some much needed money in connection with that fact. The perfectly fitting date is a too interesting coincidence to conceal. Third, the election of Friedrich August II as King August III of Poland at the beginning of 1734 and his official recognition in October 1735. Fourth, the huge orb at the electoral head, which could be a sign of the higher rank as a king for the electoral prince. Maybe Friedrich August II gave Schuchat that renewed privilege in 1735 in connection with the order of a special paper in memory of his election. Maybe the new elected king wanted to defer from his father August the Strong. In addition, fifth, there is no earlier or later appearance of that paper known so far. To conclude, the Gloria of Zelenka's Missa Purificationis could be written and inserted 2 or 3 years later, after composition and performance. In connection with the other dated manuscripts consisting of that paper, it is very possible the Gloria dates a few years later than 1733. Also noticeable is a simultaneous appearance of Sieve 8 and Sieve 20. There are 2 manuscripts which consist of both papers. One of it is dated 1735-1736. That points to the possibility that both watermarks were made and used at the same time. Nevertheless, I have to find far more material for comparison. That is only the promising beginning. Now, some further remarks. At times, it is impossible to find the sieve pair because of ink corrosion and because many manuscripts only consist of a few pages. Unfortunately, writers and composers liked to write on pages with a watermark. There are so many completely free pages without notes or text, but also without a watermark. Another reason for the difficulty of retrieving a sieve pair is the use of different paper in one manuscript. Zelenka did that very often. You get much better results with prints because the printers took piles of paper at a stroke. One person who wrote the notes mixed the paper because of the working process and the quantities were different. Think of the composers who needed months or years to write a piece of music. And my finish. Honestly, it was an accident that I found Sieve 8. I worked at a project which researched Italian manuscripts, and there I found some Schuchat paper as well. I looked at the watermarks and saw the perfectly circular letter G. That caught my attention, and I checked my watermarks from the Court Church project in Sloop a few years ago. There I found other circular letters G. That was the beginning of the identification of these special sieves. The next step would be the identification of other sieves produced at the Dresden paper mill under the management of Schuchat. Schuchat paper was used especially for instrumental music at the Dresden court and their parts for the performances. Instrumental music, unfortunately, was dated only a few times. With identification of sieves and sieve pairs and the comparison to dated material, we have the chance to date especially the instrumental music considerably more accurate. Thank you very much.